What if you could turn your waking life into a dream life? This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV, and this week my special guest is Machiel Klerk. We're going to talk about lucid dreaming right here, right now on Guys TV. You can also catch me on KCAA Radio here in Southern California and Guys Radio, my worldwide podcast. Guys TV, Guys Radio, thanks for your support. Okay, Guys Radio, today we're going to talk about dreaming, lucid dreaming, and also dream guidance and dream incubation. My special guest is Machiel Klerk. He is an expert. Let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about. Listen, everybody dreams, both literally and metaphorically, but most people don't know that their dreams can be used for personal development. Machiel Klerk is an amazing guy. He is a licensed mental health therapist, expert, and international speaker on dreams. He's traveled the world studying cultures, their healing traditions, and dream practices, and he's been vocationally guided by his dreams, including leading to finding and founding the online organization Jung platform. So let's get into it right now. The name of the book is Dream Guidance, Connecting to Your Soul Through Dream Incubation. My special guest on Guys Radio is Machiel Klerk. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, good. So let's start at the beginning, because everybody dreams and everybody's curious about dreams and everybody has a lot of ideas about dreams, but you do it for a living. So let's start at the beginning. What spurred your interest in studying and researching dreams? Weren't you in a completely different field before this, and then you became a dream researcher, worker, and teacher? What happened?
Well, it really started in my early 20s. And at that time, I was still at school studying marketing and languages. And at that time, I got stuck in my life. I was in a one-way street or in the pit. I hadn't dealt well with the loss of my father, who died at a young age. So a lot of unresolved grief. Didn't really know what to do in the future. Had no imagination for the future. Started becoming depressed. And by chance, I stumbled upon the works of Carl Jung, who wrote extensively about dreams. And so then I started applying that to my own dreams. And at once I started seeing that they were kind of psychological x-rays, showing me areas that were really dysfunctional, seeing people that were sleeping in way too much and missing work. And I could recognize those parts in myself, but also elements and characters that showed future potential of what I could become. And so by looking at my own dreams, I noticed where I was in the territory of life, how I got stuck, and also how I could get unstuck. And once I started following my dreams, life became so much better, and I've been hanging on ever since.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So what was your training in? Is it in therapy, or that makes the easy connection to being a dream expert?
Yes, I at that moment in time, I was just studying, but later on I studied psychology, became a counselor, counseling psychology. So I'm a licensed mental and health therapist. And that is where I also use dreams a lot to look at people where they are and how they can develop, and all kinds of good things that come from taking a look at one's dreams.
Okay. So I guess the first question really is, and everybody is going to be thinking about this, is what exactly are dreams? We all wonder, like, what exactly is going on there? What is a dream?
Well, it's a really great question. And even if you put scientists, press them hard, they have a bit of a hard time really answering it. But if we look at our experience, and you could take a dream that you maybe recently had, or one that stood out very vividly, and everyone that's listening to this, they will remember that dream. And when you remember that dream, you will notice that you were in an environment, that you were in a world. And in that world, your mind was somewhat active, because you maybe saw the dream alligator or a car and running for it, or you were having an experience in a world. And that is what we do know about the dream state. We are in an imaginal world where we have an experience. And so that is what we know. And then we see that people have sometimes insights, or they meet characters that are interesting, sometimes even deceased loved ones, or they have patterns that they recognize. And there people start working with the dreams. If you really look at science, these days science says dreams have to do with memory formation. It stores the experiences through the day, and you learn skills in your dreams. And it has to do with emotional digesting experiences. That is what science would say that the function is of dreams. So a bit of a broad range, but that is a bit what a dream is and what we can do with it.
Okay. The concept, Michael, of lucid dreaming, I would like you to get into that a little bit for our audience. I've read a lot of Carlos Castaneda books, and he talks about, it sounds like it's participating in your dream. You can get to the point where you can be active in your dream. He would say in his studies that if you could look at your hand and then work your way down and then start to make decisions in the dream. I have found over time, I'm at the point where I'm participating in the dream a little bit. I'm not completely in control of everything, but I am making decisions. So I feel that my dreams are becoming more and more helpful. Tell us about what is a lucid dream, and is it possible for people to participate in their dreams and use them for their betterment?
Yes. So the definition of a lucid dream is a dream in which you know that you are dreaming. So that it is like, oh my gosh, I'm in a dream. And then it starts opening up to all kinds of activities people can do. This is a skill that people can learn. Like Castaneda says in that book, look at your hands. And then I think that he says, look at your hands before you go to bed. And then when you are in the dream, you will see your hands and you will recognize that you're in a dream. Certain tests people can do throughout the day. Ask themselves, is this a dream? Do a little test. Can I push with my finger through my hand? No. Oh, then this is waking life or dense reality. If you can push through it, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm in a dream. And that moment opens up. You can have just fun, fly around, eat your favorite cake, drive the car you always wanted to do. But the real interest comes there, that you can engage with the dream environment and ask for help. I was once lucid in the dream and I yelled out, is there anyone with a message for me? And then my youth hero, Johan Cruyff, a soccer player, came flying to me. And he said, come with me, I'm going to show you something. So we were flying and there was a crossroad downstairs. And he said, I'm going to teach you how to cross a crossing. And I thought, that's strange. but he was showing me, first of all, you just have to decide that you go. You go, and then when there's traffic coming and you get scared, you stop. But you don't go back. You just don't go back. Stop. And when the traffic is gone, you go again. And that was the dream. And upon waking, I thought, gosh, it's true. I'm in a crossroad of my life. Shall I jump to private practice or not? And I thought this dream encouraged me to say, make a decision, go. You will be scared, and that's okay. Just don't run back to safety of the corporate clinics. Wait, and when you're not scared, you run further. So I thought it was a very helpful dream. But so people can also, it's a great question, yell out, is there anyone with a message for me, or dream show me something that's important for me to see? But you can also ask for an experience. So another experience that I did, and people could do as well, is I said, dream, I would like to experience unconditional love. And then I was zapped in a state of unconditional love that lasted for a minute, and then it was gone, and I woke up. But it was really beautiful to experience that state and feel, be in that state. And people could ask anything. They can ask, is there a dream doctor? I have pain. Can the dream doctor tell me something? And then they will, or talk to dream characters and just say, who are you? What brings you here? and people, and then the environment starts responding with mind-blowing answers.
This is
Yeah.
great. My special guest on Guys Radio, Michael Klerk. We're talking about dream guidance, connecting to the soul through dream incubation. We're going to get there. I want to set up a little bit more context for our audience, Michael. So you're influenced very much by Carl Jung. Jung worked with archetypes. How did he view archetypes in terms of their role in dreams and in life in general for us, in terms of pointing us towards certain directions and understanding?
So he looked at archetypes in two ways. One is kind of a pattern, and it would be, you could look at a fairy tale or a mythology, and he thought that people were living mythological patterns that would play themselves out in their day-to-day life. So you could look at a Greek myth of where maybe a theme of trust and betrayal, or the hero would be a part of it, and then you would see that your own life actually has also the hero myth in it, or elements of trust and betrayal, or sense of homecoming, and that those were structures in us. So that was one way of that he looked at it, as psychological structures, patterns. The other is more in figures, like the old wise man. And he would say the old wise man is an archetype, and you can see it come back in fairy tales and myths, but also in movies. Yoda in Star Wars would be an old wise man that has the role of a mentor, has a superior insight, helps the hero, and that's a character that comes back all across the world in any tradition. And that is what Jung really called an archetype, something that probably stands beyond the individual expression in each culture. You have an old wise man or an old wise woman, and that is how he thinks that what that is. And in dreams, you would also could encounter an old wise man, or you live out a hero myth or some mythological tale, and then you know where you are in the territory.
Okay. Interesting. Let's get into some of the specifics. So at what age are people cognizant of their dreams? I have a son. He just turned 9 a couple of months ago, and all of a sudden now he recalls his dreams. I used to ask him, "Do you dream? You ever anything happen during the night?" Right through the age of 8, and he was like, "No." And then all of a sudden, I had this dream. I had this dream. I had this dream, and he's not making it up. He's having dreams now that he's aware of. When does that click in for people, and why does it click in when it clicks in?
Usually people start having more dreams when they go through a transition. So anytime that the person goes through transition, the psyche becomes more active and we start having more dreams. So that can be almost at any age. Usually people have a dream that they remember from early on, maybe 4, 5, 6, where they were chased by the witch in a house, or some big dream that also often had a kernel of some of their life themes. And then it is really individual oriented. Like, it's great to have someone in your house who asks you about your dreams, because then you even have the sense of, oh, my dreams mean something, or they might indicate something. So they're more inclined to sooner or later start remembering them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and artistic people dream a little bit more than, or remember their dreams a little bit more than not artists.
Let's talk a little bit about, and we'll get back to the Jungian aspects of your work and how you work, but some of the specifics that people normally ask when they're talking about dreams. Okay, deceased person. I've dreamt many times of my dad, who passed a few years ago, and he shows up and he communicates with me telepathically, and he's in a form of looking his very most distinguished and best, like a 50 years old. He's got his sweater on, and it's like, yeah, that's me. I'm here. he says to me, and I'm like, okay, I don't recall the rest of it, but he showed up in some of my dreams, and now he's showing up in my son's dreams. What are
Ah,
people to make of when a deceased relative shows up? And what should you do to make the most of this interaction, if you will?
it of course always the question is a bit, is my mind creating this person, or is this person a real visitation? And usually I of course everyone has to decide it at the end of the day for themselves, but often I think that sometimes there are real visitations, and they seem to be people have a sense that there is more numinosity or sacredness to it, or they wake up and they think, huh, I think this was that. And then like what you actually mentioned in your dream, some of the features they often display as they come in a form that's usually a little younger than themselves, in which they felt really good. And sometimes they continue to come in the same outfit. Like I have an aunt who very infrequent visits, but always in this particular purple dress that I think that she probably likes. But it also gives me the signal, oh, this feels like aunt. So when people have those dreams, go by your own feeling, and there's a certain quality to the ancestor visiting that it is distinct from any other dream that you have. And now that you know that you have these dreams and your son has these dreams, you could also in this life start making the relationship a little bit stronger.
During
He's in the
during the dream state or during my physical state?
Yeah, during the physical state, because the dream is a world that is there at night, but when you open your eyes, that world doesn't really disappear. It just continues to coexist.
Mhm.
So your dad continues to coexist in this world that is also here. So he is around. And so you could say, hey, Dad, I know you were in the dream, or I think you were in the dream. You tell me even you're in the dream. I'm going to work from the premise that you are. And first of all, gosh, so awesome you're there. And uh, next time, is there anything you want to tell me, Dad, that maybe I should know? Or so you start talking to him, that maybe gives him also, when he comes in the dream, that he says, well, Robert, I want to share something with you, or let me tell you something. It often looks like they need some informed consent to interfere with us living here on Earth. And so if you say, gosh, I would like help with this, or tell me something, or is there anything I can do for you? Then that sets up that dream encounter. And by doing that, also when you are in the dream and seeing him, you're more used to the notion, oh, this might be that. And so the next time you see him, you might respond also, Dad, I'm so happy to see you. It's so nice to have this moment, because your mind is then preconditioned to, oh, I can encounter that, instead of, oh, gosh, is this, or yeah, just the uniqueness of it.
Okay.
So that's a way to go.
Got it. My special guest again, Machiel Klerk, Dream Guidance, Connecting to the Soul through Dream Incubation. Now, you have a process for us to make the most of our dreams. It's like, I think it's a 4-step or 5-step process. Could you take us through that briefly so people will start to be able to use this, our audience?
Yes. So dreams have the ability to help us through life. Many inventions and breakthroughs and creativity have come through dreams. Yet we don't have to wait for the dream to come to us and deliver some insight or creativity. We can turn towards the dream. And we can do that through dream incubation, or that 5-step process, in which you ask the dream a question before you go to bed in order to have a helpful response. And I have a little example. If you want me to share, I can do
I
that.
think you mentioned you should write it down also, right?
It's super important.
Okay.
Step one is know that you have a question to ask. And that sounds really simple, but actually we have a lot of questions that are alive. And so identify in yourself which question you want to ask. And recently there was this man who had been married, divorced for a while, wanted to go back in the dating life, noticed that dating was somewhat, it didn't really flow. And he came to me, he said, Machiel, I want to ask the dream, how can I find a partner? I said, well, that's a great question. So he identified step one, which issue to ask for. And we have a lot of questions inside, some that we push away. And actually those are the most helpful to ask support for. Step two is identify and phrase the right question. So the man said, well, thinking about this, what I really want to know is, what is my biggest obstacle in dating? Because if I solve that, I will find that partner, but I know there's something blocking me. And so he wrote down the question, dream, what is my biggest obstacle in my dating life? And it's a really great question because it's one question at a time. What's my biggest obstacle? Not what my obstacles. It's an open-ended question. So it gives the opportunity for the dream to respond. Step three, do a ritual. And with the ritual is really an intention setting, communicate to the larger awareness, or if you're spiritual, you can say the mystery or God or spirit guide or brain, whatever soul, whatever you want to call it. Show it that you're interested, and that just treat it as a relationship. So this man drew a heart, put a big question mark on it, and then wrote on it to the dream, please help me. I want to become more loving. I want to be able to practice love and give love. And so it becomes a generous question. Spend some time on it. Went to bed, meditated in bed. And then step four is sleep and hopefully dream. And then step five is when you wake up, write down the question, write down the dream, because the dreams have a tendency to evaporate in the morning. So you have to write it down and then work on it. And this man had a dream in which he was driving through a tunnel in his car, and in front of him was a car, and in the distance he sees a mountain lion, and he says, when I get closer, I can see it's a tiger. It's beautiful, but I get really scared. Slam on the brakes and I back out. And that was the dream. And so write it down, and then instead of asking the question, what does this mean, which requires you to know what is a tiger and a car and a tunnel, you can ask the question, what is happening? Because in what is happening, you look at the structure. So he said, what is happening is I'm driving, I'm moving through life. And when I see something that's really beautiful, but I think it's really scary, I slam on the brakes and I back out. And then he thought, if I read it against the question, what's my biggest obstacle? Oh,
it's himself, right?
Right, yeah. and then he knows, I'm backing out when I get too close, or I think it's scary, or get too vulnerable, or a beautiful person I don't dare really go after what I really love. And so he could work on that. So that's in a nutshell the 5 steps. Identify that you have an issue, write a good question, do a ritual, dream and sleep, and write it down, and then work on the dream.
Absolutely amazing. How about some of the symbols that we often have in dreams, whether it's, let me give you one. I had recently snow. I was in the snow. It was snowing like crazy, and this is still summertime, but it was snowing. And I was wondering, is snow a good thing? And I looked it up. I have a dream book, and it said, yeah, it's a really good thing. But all these books can have different meanings. Are there certain symbols that have pretty consistent meanings? And let's just take one like snow, or I know there's a relativity also, because some people say, well, water, was it a clean water, was it dirty water, was it rainwater, was it a flood? So there has to be some context. So talk to us about that, Michael.
Yeah, well, indeed, it's there's an element of subjectivity to it, and not subjectivity. To take a little step back, is the mind creates figures that are manifestations of our feelings and beliefs and expectations. Let's say this was a dream that we're now in, and I think I'm rambling on. Then in the dream, probably a character would show up, like my previous boss, who would stand there and shake his head and would say, "Oh." And so then you would ask me, what do I associate to my previous boss? And I would say, oh, he's very critical. So criticalness takes on the form and shape of my previous boss. But it's because my subjective experience is that he was critical. For someone else, it might be their mom or their neighbor or whoever. So criticalness will take on the form and shape of someone in your life that represents that character. And that is where dream work also very often works with, what do you associate to this figure? Oh, and the same with your snow. What do you associate with snow? Maybe you like snow, maybe you don't like snow. That makes a big difference in how to approach it.
So it's relative.
There's a relative component to it, and then some other component that you could ask in it is also and there's a collective and component with these archetypes that Jung talks about, like the sense of coming home, the old man, a horse. A horse would often be somewhat like an instinctual power, but then it is maybe you are afraid for horses. That's different than someone who loves horses or was kicked by a horse. So it's a dance between the subjective and some collective, because snow is definitely a collective experience. But then you would also look at the context of your dream. Where are you in the dream? Is it supposed to snow? What is your reactions to the snow? Those things would be important to know.
How about sex in a dream? Does that also depend on the individual, or is this some type of ubiquitous symbolic occurrence that happens in people's dreams? Because I got to think that people dream of sex.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the 12 common dream themes. And sex has two components usually to it. One is literal. There's the desire for a certain person, and you would have, you literally dream about that person, you have sex with them. The other question becomes its symbolic nature. And sexuality symbolically is an integration with, you're merging with. So people sometimes tell me, gosh, I had sex with this guy, but I'm not gay. What does this mean? Or they have even more disturbing, I had sex with a family member. I don't have those feelings. Right?
Yeah.
And then it is like, don't worry, we all sometimes have these weird sexual experiences. Right. And ask yourself, what characteristics does this person have? Because my psyche is probably trying to merge with. So maybe I'm having sex with someone that I'm not really interested in at all, or would be like, I'm not gay, but maybe I dream about having sex with this guy. And you would say, gosh, what do you associate with him? And it is like, oh, he's so firm and he can speak up. Oh, my psyche tries to merge with speaking up and firmness, and just takes this person, and the dream seems not to have any problem with choosing those figures.
Now, you mentioned spirit guides, and a lot of folks, including myself, I've been working to, I got a name, and I've got a name from some other guides that I've been given in my kind of mind's eye. How can we kind of hook up with our spirit guides in a dream? What do we have to do to say, I want to see you, I want to get to know you, I want a stronger relationship with you, will you help me?
Yeah, beautiful. These things, if you also look at indigenous cultures where they have always built the relationships with these spirit guides, seem to really hinge on building rituals. And so the ritual could be as simple as, with attention, I light a candle, I talk to the spirit guide, maybe I do a dance or I make a drawing, but really treat it as a real relationship. So you spend some time, and instead of only asking what it can do for you, ask it, is there anything that you want me to do for you? And sometimes you can say, oh, I would love to see you, spirit guide. And spirit guides also often take on the form and shape of people we know. Maybe it comes in the form of your, like in my case with Johan Cruyff, the soccer player. It takes on the form of a hero, a movie star, someone that you admire, or it comes in its original form. But what do you want out of that relationship? Maybe you want to ask the spirit guide. You can say, spirit guide, tonight I would love to see you if you want to. If it doesn't come, change the question a little bit and say, spirit guide, what do you feel is the one thing I should focus upon right now? Because then you know what spirit guide thinks is important, and then you focus on that, and you work that, so that your spirit guide also knows, hey, I tell you something and you take me serious. This strengthens the relationship. And then once you do that, you will start noticing that your intuition becomes better in day-to-day life. You have more these synchronistic events, these coincidences that are little miracles. So those things help.
Got it. Machiel Klerk, my very special guest. Dream Guidance is the book. We're here on Guys Radio talking about connecting to the soul through dream incubation. I've got to think that in the preparation for dream, you mentioned meditation. So if you are a couple of things here. One is, I guess, drugs and alcohol, probably not a good idea to take the nights you want to really work with your dreams because they're going to dull your senses. You could feel free to comment on that. But also on meditation, I have been told by my spiritual unfoldment teacher, like, don't meditate in bed. I do something called box breathing where I lay in bed and I'll count it. I inhale to 10, I hold it to 10, I exhale for 10, I wait for 10, I do it again 10 times. Invariably, I'm asleep before I do it 10 times. And that's my way to kind of get into the dream state. But my teacher told me, be careful about meditating in bed, because if you open yourself up and then you fall asleep, like, you're opened up when you're going into the dream state, and maybe that's not the greatest thing. What are your thoughts on that, Michael, from your experience?
Well, I can see where he warns you to meditate in bed, because then you fall asleep. So that's a nice way. And your state of mind before you fall asleep does influence your dreams. There are Buddhist traditions where they meditate actually on compassion, so that compassionate state is more in their dream state. Now, I do think that if we're generally have a good intention, like, hey, I'm going to the dream state to grow, to learn, to become more loving, to work on myself. The dream state responds to that, and you're in a safe place. Generally, the dream wants to help, and being open to that is actually, I think, actually is a helpful thing. But if you would, be in a not a good space, or have not the right intention, it might not be optimal. Yeah.
Okay. How about for yourself? How is your studying of dreams and your participation in the process? Because you're guiding other folks. I'm sure you've done a lot of work on yourself. What have you learned, and what has been the biggest surprise in terms of your experience in studying and experiencing lucid dreaming on your own and dream incubation?
Well, in lucid dreaming, as how joyful that world actually is. So it is super fun to be in the dream and think, oh my gosh, this is a dream. And then you notice how real everything is, and the mind-blowing reality of being in a dream. It's also so real that most of the time we're walking around there not even questioning whether it's the dream world. That is how unbelievable powerful the imagination or this other world is. And but I think that I've learned is that there's some awareness, larger awareness in the dream that is interested in helping and educating us. And it is really, we'll do that if we ask, spontaneously a little bit, but once we turn towards it and build a relationship with it, it really delights and is a lot of joy in helping. And it looks like that phenomenon is really kind, compassionate, and interested in supporting us to deal with life, with its ups and downs. No question that life can have big ups and downs, but there's some source that wants to help, and it requires from us, because it allows so much free will that we can do whatever we want. But if our free will says, hey, I could really use some help with this issue, gosh, I'm stuck here, or is there anything I can do for you? We start having this relationship with spirit guide and the larger awareness that gives a sense of purpose and meaning and support from a kind source that makes life richer and more colorful. And that's been in my life a big discovery versus being in the pit in my early 20s, and was pretty depressing.
Michael, how about nightmares? What are nightmares, and why do people get them? And do we need, are they teaching us something, or what?
Yeah, nightmares are anxiety dreams, and usually it is too much or too little anxiety. That is one. So we could, when we have one, we could check with ourselves in day-to-day life, do I have too much or too little anxiety on this moment? It's usually too much for, I feel like I'm being tested, and now I dream again about being back in school, doing a test, can find the classroom, running around, being out of breath. And so, oh, okay, I'm too anxious. How can I slow down, get back to myself? And the dream tells you that. Or we're being chased by a monster. And very often, you could, for example, in a lucid dream or in a dream incubation, ask the monster, what do you want? And very often it says surprising things like, I want to tell you something, or I'm a disregarded aspect of you. You've been pushing me away. I'm the part of you that can write or sing, or I can stand up, but we're afraid for parts of ourselves and we push it away, and then they become dark. And they're not really dark. It's like Beauty and the Beast. The beast is also the one with the golden voice. And once we bring the beast in, we also bring in the positive side. So if we turn towards the nightmare, even if they're scary, write it down, work with the image, bring in and ask your spirit guide to be there, so feel safe, bring in the image, then the nightmare will usually go away, and the message or the energy that is in it will come to us. And so they have a function. It's a bit of an alarm bell, but listen to the alarm bell, because if we don't, the alarm bell only gets louder and you get more anxious, more depressed. Turn towards them.
Is every dream important, or do we have some quote unquote kind of like garbage dreams that we can just kind of dismiss, that just some, neurons firing in our brain while we're asleep, and that really doesn't have a specific message, versus those dreams where you wake up and say, oh, that was something?
Yes. So that is something, or that was something. Those dreams, the Native Americans would call the big dreams. And they're way fewer and more rare. And then you have the small dreams. And almost all small dreams have some significance. Like it is our own psyche trying to grow or flow towards the next phase. So dreams really point also to who we are not yet. And it tries to become like the rose seed becomes a rose, and you can see where the rose is heading towards. And by aligning with it, you're getting in the flow. So I think that all dreams indicate and do something, but some are really small and not that meaningful, and some can be life-changing.
Now, for yourself, Michael, and for those who you teach, and for our audience out here, do you do the process of going through your ritual, if you will, every evening about asking a question, writing it down, getting up, writing. Do you do that every day? Do you recommend that people do that all the time, or how often? How often is the right amount, or is it up to the individual?
Yeah, I don't do it every day, but in the beginning, when I started really exploring the technique, I did it a lot. But then I also experimented with what can I ask? What does the dream know? Which questions work? So questions, what I've learned that work is that have to do with your personal life path. So if I ask my dream, what did my neighbor have for dinner? It doesn't tell me. If I ask a question is, what is one type of food that is good for me? Or how can I be a more loving person? Or how can I grow my business in a way that I can serve people that would benefit from my services? The dream will help with that. And these days, I don't think I ask even once a week. But if I would be in a certain obstacle, I probably will ask a little bit more. But the main thing I want to encourage people to do is experiment and test. You cannot make many mistakes, and if you make a mistake, learn from it. The mistakes are usually more in you don't ask the right question, you don't spend enough time on the ritual, you give up too quickly on writing down and working with the dream because you think, oh, it doesn't mean anything. Give it a little bit of time or share the answer with someone to work on it, because there is something in us that is delights to help, and we might not always understand it, but you can build a relationship, and if you strengthen that, things will you will get just better information over time.
Okay, terrific. So the name of the book is Dream Guidance. Once again, connecting to the soul through dream incubation. My special guest on Guys Radio, Machiel Klerk, founder of the Jung platform. Last question, what exactly is the Jung platform? And then why don't you take it from there and just tell everybody where they can find out more about you, the platform, your book, and your work.
Thank you. Yes, the Jung platform is an online company where we provide courses and lectures on dreams, Jungian psychology for beginners and intermediate, and other spiritual perspectives. And that company was actually founded because I had a dream that told me build a platform for Jungian psychology and like Jungian psychology. So a clear example of how a dream can have a vocational quality. People can also go to my website, machielklerk.com. Difficult, maybe you can put it in the notes. There you can see my work as a therapist and my work with dreams and the Jung platform. And of course, you can see a little bit about the book, which you can get on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and wherever.
Fantastic. And Machiel, you spell your name Machiel, Klerk, Klerk. So look it up, and we'll have all that information in our broadcast. So, and in our promotions, of course. So, Machiel Klerk, great job with the dreaming. What's next for you? Anything coming up?
I am continue to build the Jung platform these days. So we're bringing more programs, more courses, certificate programs, growing company.
Awesome.
That's the most. Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much for being my guest on Guys Radio, and keep dreaming, everybody. If you enjoy the content and guests I bring you each and every week to Guys Radio and Guys TV, please support us by subscribing to our YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Thanks for your support.